And hello, everyone, and welcome to another Journalift webinar. My name is Željko Crnjaković, and I will be your host in today's topic, which is audience engagement, path to growth and stability. Audience engagement is one of the pillars of the media's outlet strategy to growth and success. In this business, it is imperative that the content created is consumed by an ever-growing audience, and that goal is constant, no matter how big your audience is. Another goal is that the media should always strive to not only reach their audience, but also engage them so that they could interact, get information, feedback, and even grow their revenue channels. Now, with the internet, competition as well as sheer overload of information to whichever person in the world is exposed by being online is making the engaging with the audience not an easy task. So in this webinar, we will talk about the different types of audience engagement, like crowdfunding, raising funds, and how can these activities be utilized by media organizations. We will also talk about leveraging the influence and support of diaspora, and how can people living around the world help local media outlets survive and thrive. And finally, we'll talk about different types of content that can best engage any type of audience in today's information overload, naming some of the more successful strategies that media organizations should have in order to stand out and drive most engagement from their audience. Today, joining me in this webinar are my three esteemed guests, and they are Dr. Bleriana Bino, who is the co-founder and executive director of Center Science and Innovation for Development. And she's a researcher in social sciences with a particular focus on media democracy and participation. She's the co-founder and executive director of the center in Albania, working closely with academia, civil society, policy, and media, and leading a network of outstanding scholars and policy researchers working on democratic development, good governance, media and communication, research to society collaborations, and digital transformation. My next guest is Sonia Lazich, an expert on community building and engagement, crowdfunding, and capacity building. She helps nonprofits and media organizations in these tasks. And as a part of the Catalyst Balkan team, she was managing the first Serbian crowdfunding platform, Donacije.rs, helping over 80 nonprofits prepare and launch their crowdfunding campaigns. In the last couple of years, she has worked with numerous local media outlets from the Western Balkans on their crowdfunding campaigns or fundraising campaigns. Crowdfunding, fundraising, it's the same. We'll talk to Sonia about it. My final guest, and certainly not the least, is Goran Igich, Program Director of Foundation for Debate and Education IDEA, Southeast Europe, and founder of Media Vidivaka. Goran Igich has been a journalist for more than 15 years, started working for the university newspaper in Skopje, Studentski Zbor, and continued his career in the first private newspaper in Macedonia, Dnevnik. In 2016, together with Mite Kuzevski, he founded the digital media outlet Vidivaka. Well, welcome all. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, so because we have very different topics for our three guests, we're going to do these in segments. Before we get into it, so some technical information for all of those you watching live. So if you have any technical issues, difficulties, if we start to break up, if you lose signal, just please refresh the window that you're viewing the webinar in, or just close the window and reopen it again and relog into Webinar Jam. So we're also going to talk first to Sonia, then Bleriana, then Goran. And if you have any questions for them while they're discussing the questions I said to them, please feel free to leave your questions in chat. We can answer your questions immediately after each segment, or we can answer them at the end of the webinar, depending on when you post them. Also, please just let me know in the questions to who the question is posed to. Okay, so let's go and welcome Sonia into the webinar. Sonia, when we talk about crowdfunding and raising funds, which is always a fun topic to each and everyone, not just media, we rarely look at crowdfunding as a business model. So especially related to media organizations. So, however, it's a very useful business model that can be very widely leveraged. So how can media organizations use crowdfunding?
Maybe it will be important to just for a second take a step back and maybe just spend a few seconds on the definition, so everyone knows what we're talking about exactly. So whether we call it online fundraising or crowdfunding, just to give a little bit of context. So online fundraising, I see crowdfunding only as one of the four models of online fundraising. Fundraising is a way of basically raising funds through the internet, and it usually involves an online donation page and is a simple way for individuals to support some project, something they believe in and want to support. The digital aspect of it gives it a higher level of transparency, and it gives the ability to track the support that is given to some project compared to the let's say the old-fashioned way of fundraising, which is one of the key factors in building trust towards an organization, team, media, whatever. It has a tradition in nonprofits, and this was my personal entrance to the matter, but is also a very common way for media organizations all over the world to get additional financial help and diversify their revenue from and get support from their readers and audiences in general. And I think that this is especially relevant and important for independent local media who mostly struggle to make ends meet and have to depend on public funds, international donors, advertising. But I think online fundraising is, for me, more than raising funds, is more about the unique opportunity of reaching new audiences, building constant communication with supporters, being transparent about that support, and reporting about the outcomes and results you've achieved in your work. And I think currently local small media usually have none or very little feedback from their community and from their readers on the content they create, because they're so caught up in this endless cycle of dependency towards their donors, the administration, the lack of resources. So they have along the way lost contact with the people who they initially started the media for, their audiences. And I think that this is kind of at the core of the issue, because without the actual understanding of whether the content you create is truly relevant, is it received, is it understood, is it followed, the work itself we can barely see effect. Change is missing, and media lacks to fulfill its main purpose, and to work in general in public interest. So this is where I think online fundraising is very handy, a very handy tool, much more than raising funds. It reconnects you with your target audience, then allows for further engagement. It creates space for new audiences to come on board and start following you. So also in the context of media sustainability, which I don't think there is a universal solution, I think that, relying on one or two ways of funding and financing is not the solution. That's why I think that online fundraising alone is not the solution, but can and must be part of it. Because the media are the voice of the community, in the local especially, and they work for the community. And the more relevant and closer they become to them, the public will need them more. So I think that's probably the true value of online fundraising.
Okay, I have a sub question. While you were talking, it occurred to me. So when we talk about crowdfunding and fundraising, it's usually, as you said, so from an NGO point of view, and it's usually around a specific, like a drive. So we're fundraising for something. We're crowdfunding towards a certain goal. So how can this be applied to, for example, can you give us an example of how can any, not specific, we'll get into specific local examples later, but what sort of a fundraising action is suitable for media organizations as a certain goal? So is it, and I mean, media is trying to get a kind of a constant stream of revenue, and how can crowdfunding and fundraising, which are in essence meant to be, done in periodically or towards one goal, how can this be applied in media? Can you give us an example?
Well, I think it also depends on the model we are talking about.
Okay.
So crowdfunding is a one-time action, timely limited, for example, from 30 to up to 90 days of a campaign. So, and it's very goal-oriented, project-specific. So if, for example, a local media wants to start a campaign and raise funds for, I don't know, new equipment for their TV studio, that can be a good option. But when we talk about more complex models, for example, subscription, membership, and stuff like that, this entails bigger dedication. This means that media needs to prepare well, and that this entails that the media have to promote their campaign constantly, because it's not enough for you to, have a donation button on your website and just expect people to come and support you, whoever you are. Not even Guardian can do that. You need to have a constant promotion, and you have to, have quality content to follow that. So I think that it depends on the size of the media, it depends on the size of their audiences, it depends on their goal, and many other things. But the let's say advice I always give to smaller media is always to start small and to test their abilities to fundraise on a smaller scale. And then based on the results they get, maybe to think about more complex models and approaches to fundraising.
Okay, you mentioned several models. Can you give us, you mentioned crowdfunding. What are the others?
So we have crowdfunding, we have donation, we have membership, and peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer, I don't think is very relevant for the media sector, but crowdfunding, as I already mentioned, is this timely limited model. Donation and subscription mean that you would, for example, have to install this technical, implement this technical solution, for example, to your website, and then, have it there and invite audiences to support this. But this is also costly for some media. This doesn't come free, so you would have to engage with IT companies maybe and have, monthly expenses for this solution to actually function. So I don't think this is always the best solution for local media, but there are some solutions that can be better for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so can we talk about some, for example, examples that local media in the Western Balkans implemented in fundraising and have been successful in it?
Well, online fundraising in general is at the beginnings in the Western Balkans, and especially when it comes to the media industry. But there are certain examples that we can mention and analyze. For example, when it comes to local media, we have the example of TV Forum from Prijepolje, that in 2019 launched the first crowdfunding campaign for media in Serbia ever. And it was a very successful one. And I'm very proud to say that I supported them along the way. They, as I mentioned before, like an example of a crowdfunding campaign, they actually wanted to raise funds for buying new equipment for their TV studio. That's one example of a very simple one-time campaign. We have other examples of independent media in Serbia. For example, we have Peščanik that has a donation page. We have local media in Kragujevac called Iz Glave. We have CINS, we have Krik among them. In Slovenia, we have a very successful example of investigative portal Pod Črto. Then we had, I don't know, Forum in Croatia, and several other examples. But I think that it's difficult to estimate successes of each of them because I don't have the access to data. But for example, I can mention Krik more specifically because I know that 7 years ago, when they first started inviting their readers to support the work they do. So 7 years after, 25% of their yearly budget comes from the readers, which is, I think, extremely impressive for Serbia, and I think in general for independent media. And just a side note, they don't have actually installed the technical solution on their website. People actually go, for example, to the post office and wait in line and buy and support Krik that way. That's how big of a support and fan base they have. Mm-hmm. But also it is important to note that Krik covers a very specific topic. They cover dangerous topics, which is criminal and corruption, where some of the people in power are involved. So it is by default a very attractive topic to read about, and the information is pretty exclusive. So it's understood why people want to read more of that. But I think more than that, Krik just does quality journalism, and the way they communicate with their audiences, the way they ask for support, the way they thank for it, the way they continuously are maintaining relationship with them is, in my opinion, a textbook example of how it should be done. And so I really recommend everyone to follow them and just kind of learn from them. But I also think that this is where maybe people from, especially probably local media who are maybe listening to this, would be skeptical about the approach and online fundraising in general, because they probably would think that you would need to report on topics as attractive as Krik in order to get support. I don't think that's the case necessarily. But I do think that you need to offer audiences what they need, what they really need. So, and additionally, making an effort to dedicate time and communicate with your audiences for many media, I think might seem like a waste of time. But I promise it's worth the effort and it pays off, especially in the long run. So I think that, audience engagement and online fundraising are not trends. Those are realities and they are not going away. And so those media who recognize it first will be the first ones to also profit and benefit from it.
Okay, we're still with Sonia. We have one more question for her. I have one more question for her. So I'm just reminding the audience, if you have a question on online funding and raising funds and crowdfunding, let me know in the chat and we can talk about it with Sonia. Sonia, so what are the world trends in online fundraising, and compared to, as you said, so it's only starting right now, especially for media organizations in the Western Balkans. So what is the future of online fundraising in Western Balkans that the media outlets here can, think about, that is the world trend?
Well, even though, in the West, this isn't anything new. I think that the approach people have towards it and towards paying news is, I would say, pretty much the same, especially when it comes to local news. On one hand, the most common reason readers give for not wanting to pay for digital news is because they can find plenty of free content already elsewhere. But this suggests that in order for people to pay for news, the content needs to be truly relevant, as I already said, in a way maybe exclusive, attractive for readers. But I would also argue that this should be the case for any media, doing online fundraising or not. But this brings us to another point. Truly local news don't have competition, or not as much competition, and the content that they can produce is truly unique and really valuable and relevant for their readers if approached properly. So I would even argue to say that local news have bigger value and direct effect on people's lives than other news. But also, when talking about global statistics or information, I think that we should mention COVID, because it really disrupted the way people read the news, pay attention to news, but also because it didn't also only change things for the worse. Because there is also the report by, for example, the Institute for Nonprofit News, that in 2020 there was a rapid increase of nonprofit community oriented media outlets that were launched. So, even though, of course, thousands of people lost their jobs because of the pandemic, it also showed that these types of information and news were very much needed in these times. So maybe just to conclude, I don't think there's much difference in the way people are willing to pay for news here or anywhere else. I just think that because most people would rather choose not to pay, we should focus on those who are willing to, and they are doing it only if the information they are getting is truly relevant and it directly influences them. But I think that the key is not only getting supporters, because you can get one-time support almost without too much effort, but the thing is in retaining it. And one way is transparency. The other is constant communication with your audience, getting to know them, their needs, getting feedback from them, reading analytics, getting information from it, testing, trying different models, different approaches, engagement techniques, being open to suggestions without compromising your core mission, and ultimately creating good and quality content.
Thank you, Sonia. We have one question for you, and then we'll move on. So it's from our audience. So are Patreon and similar formats a sensible options for long-term support from readers, specifically in Serbia and other countries in the region?
I think Patreon can be a good option, but also depends on the example we're talking about. I think that it's good for media creators, for people that are working on specific type of content, not maybe media in general, but also Patreon has fees that are maybe not, as good for every media, and for local media, I don't think it is, because the fees are pretty high. So I think that it can be an option, but for a very specific type of content. It's difficult to say for an example, because we have examples of some podcasts that are receiving support that way, but I don't think that a lot of media can actually get funding that way.
As you said, it's mostly about the content. So
yes.
Patreon is an option depending on the content itself. Okay, moving on. So engaging the audience does not always mean relying on only that audience that we see around us every day. One type of audience that a lot of media organizations are disregarding is the diaspora or the people that have moved away from their home country and are working, living in abroad or different countries. It is a fact that one of the largest diaspora of the Western Balkans is certainly from Albania. So, Bleriana, are the media organizations in Albania leveraging this audience group, and how?
Thank you very much, Željko, for putting this together. And also thank you to journalists for organizing and inviting us. I think what Sonia provided and introduced was very good also for the case of engaging diaspora with local media outlets, specifically in Albania. At the moment, in fact, media organizations in Albania are not actually leveraging this audience group, even though it has a great potential. In fact, the diaspora potential is generally untapped in Albania, both in terms of economic, but also social, political, and also academic as well. Our center, with the support of Thomson Foundation and the Media for All project, conducted a study in the past 4 months, investigating exactly the level of engagement of Albanian diaspora with local media in Albania, particularly local news media. We looked primarily on the connection of diaspora with the homeland, but also on their media consumption habits. So are they, for instance, interested in paying for news or for media content? And if yes, what would be the conditions? Do they generally provide support, let's say, for different social causes in Albania or in their country of residence? And then we looked more focused, we zoomed into their interest to provide financial or non-financial support for local media outlets in Albania. We conducted in-depth interviews with diaspora organizations in Italy, United Kingdom, Switzerland, Greece, and United States, Germany as well. And also with diaspora, Albanian diaspora media that are established already in these countries that I mentioned that have a considerable Albanian diaspora. And what we find is that actually they confirm that there is very limited engagement or cooperation on both sides, and that this potential of engaging diaspora as an audience group, not only for monetization but also for content diversification, is very limited on the side of local media outlets in Albania. Also because they have limited resources, they don't have the necessary knowledge and expertise, or they don't have the tools to do this. On another hand, diaspora coverage in local media is also limited. So, for instance, we find that during the recovery period after the major earthquake that we had in Albania in November 2019, there was an intensive fundraising campaign that was initiated by key diaspora associations and persons to support Albanian families and the Albanian state in the recovery period. Because this was such an emergency and such a particular case and such a topic of high sensitivity and interest, so diaspora was largely covered as well in the Albanian media. Another case when the Albanian local media cover diaspora is particularly when it is related to politics. A major issue, for instance, is diaspora voting. Political parties in Albania promising on it, diaspora associations, organizations and network requesting for it, but then it never actually happens. And so when we approach elections, there is always this debate about diaspora voting, and so it receives a lot of media coverage. But other than that, local media do not actually focus on diaspora and do not cover topics that might be of interest to diaspora, so that later on they can also be interested in providing some kind of support. In 2021, the Vibrant Information Barometer highlighted that the interaction of the media outlets in Albania with their audiences is limited only to certain aspects of monetization that can be, for instance, through donation, but also through advertising and through subscriptions, which is very limited. But is not seen in a more strategic and broad way in terms of gaining their trust and in terms of providing to them quality content so as you can maintain this relation in the future. What Sonia mentioned, for example, not only about attracting and doing fundraising one-off, but how to maintain this in a long run. And that's what we see. Even in those cases where local media outlets engage with audiences in this sense, it is done only for monetization and in short term, not looking strategically. And this can be then seen also in the case of diaspora. A major concern is about the professionalism and independence of local media in Albania. And what we find is that particularly non-for-profit media or media with a specific mission or media that are established by civil society organization are more keen into exploring these opportunities and also with engaging with diaspora. But other media, particularly private media, online media that operate nationally or mainly in the capital or in other local communities do not seem very interested or are not very open, how to say, to these new opportunities, also because they are burdened by the daily pressures, by financial pressures as well, and sometimes also by the overall intimidation of doing journalism in Albania that is linked to the overall political situation. So this issue of the ability of local media to produce original content that is niche, that is specific to the needs of audiences, being local audiences or the diaspora, is the major issue in connecting local media with diaspora.
And has any research been done on the content itself that the diaspora is looking for? So you mentioned the differences between doing media for locals and doing content which is not targeted to people in diaspora. So has any media or any other organization done any research? What kind of content would that need to be?
In the study that I mentioned, we asked the diaspora specifically about the type of content that they are interested in. What we find in this study is that we sampled 501 diaspora members from the countries that I mentioned through an online survey. And almost 94% of them follow Albanian media outlets several times a week, so basically on a daily basis. And their primary source of information about Albania is through media outlets, particularly online media outlets in Albania, which are accessed generally through social medias and then through the website of these media outlets. So this points to the importance of the digital presence. And in terms of content, the majority of them, about 90% of the respondents, confirmed that they were interested in politics, current affairs, but also on topics related to tourism, history, education, less on issues such as climate change or environment, for example, and environment protection that are becoming topics of interest in the context of Albania. But politics, news, and current affairs remain the top priority in terms of the content that diaspora was looking for. At the same time, they suggested that they also wanted to see more content that related to the life or the contribution of Albanian diaspora abroad as ambassadors, let's say, of Albania, but also of different contributions of Albanian diaspora within the homeland. So they preferred to see more topics covering this issue. And the third one, there was an interest about particular original and niche local news. So not simply politics at a national or international level, but also in a sense local politics, local government, very regional and local issues of concern to the citizens that later on diaspora could also provide some support. For instance, I don't know, library, a lack of libraries or infrastructure, schools that are not functioning well or that need some kind of infrastructural support, which can be also provided by different diaspora organization or individual. But they need the media, let's say, as an intermediary in this case, but also as a medium to raise awareness of all the interested stakeholders in this regard.
Okay, so just to round up everything, and you covered pretty much all the questions that we prepared, but so the problems that are being perceived is, one, from the media side, they don't have the funds or the technical knowledge to reach the diaspora, to even engage them in some sort of way, and we have a question on that I'm going to later read you. So, and on the diaspora side, there is a trust issue, there is a lack of content issue, that the media is being too focused and too pressured in just doing internal politics and pushing their own agenda or somebody else's agenda in that sense. So did we miss anything? Are there any other issues that between the diaspora and the media from both sides?
I think, yes, you wrapped up very well. I think it is important as well for local media to target diaspora strategically, because Albanian diaspora, as you mentioned, is very large and is dispersed. So we are thinking of different continents, different countries, and within countries there are some hotspots. For instance, in the United States, we find that in the East Coast, particularly in New York, diaspora is more organized and at the same time is more interested in providing support to local media or engaging with them. Second is the type of modalities. So local media should also think about the right modalities to offer to diaspora. And of course, online payment, for instance, annual subscription or donation are the most preferred type of modalities by the diaspora based in the study that we conducted. But there is also interest in terms of crowdfunding or particular online fundraising. Another issue I mentioned briefly before is the digital presence and the quality of the digital presence of local media, not only in terms of their websites, but particularly on social media, because the primary way for diaspora to access media in Albania is through social media, through their presence online.
Okay. Sorry.
Sure.
You were going to say something else. So, sorry. Go ahead.
And one more thing is how to link local media with diaspora media. So this peer-to-peer support in terms of exchanging know-how, exchanging information, creating content, knowledge sharing, and also organizing fundraising or other activities together. It was suggested almost by all the stakeholders that we interviewed, and there was considerable interest on the side of very well-established Albanian diaspora media to work with quality and independent local media.
Okay, good points. Now, the key question is, and it's persistent in the chat, and you were also mentioning it is a difficult question or a difficult solution, is how to reach the diaspora. How can media outlets specifically, what are they targeting? Who are they targeting? And or what are some of the strategies that they can implement in order to reach the target groups of Albanian diaspora in different countries? Do you have any suggestions?
Our study actually finds that particularly for Korça, Vlora, Lezhë, Tirana, and Shkodra, there is high interest. So basically Albanians originally from these cities residing in Greece, in Italy, in Germany, in the United States and United Kingdom are very much interested in providing support to local media. Entry point are diaspora association, organizations, and networks that are already very active, both in their country of residence, but also in cooperation with Albanian organizations, civil society, but also state authorities as well. The second entry point is, of course, through Albanian diaspora media, as I mentioned before, that they can be a very good entry point for the local media to reach audiences. The third one is through resourceful, key influential individuals in the diaspora that have already worked for some time in trying to establish connection between economic, academic, and civic diaspora with Albania. And the fourth one is, of course, through the different digital tools of attracting particular diaspora groups. The study shows that Albanian diaspora that work in civil society sector, in academia, and in the media sector, less in the business sector, are those that have more interest in connecting with Albanian media. So in terms of targeting, this is the group to look for. Also, those who have higher income or who are self-employed or who are freelancers are also more interested to provide support to the diaspora. So there are different tools of strategically targeting audiences and diaspora, also digitally, but we believe, based on this study, that it would be best for media to start small and to start initially with these connections that are provided through diaspora associations, network organizations, and media, to start with concrete campaigns, concrete topics to be covered, and then build from that and see how that can be scaled up and expanded.
Okay, we have another question. So what about the Albanian Greek diaspora? What does your study have on them and how can they be engaged, if you have any?
The Albanian Greek diaspora was the one that was more sensitive to the open diaspora issues in Albania that are linked with the Albanian government. The one that I mentioned about voting. So their general grievances, I would say, with the Albanian state, not only the current government, but in general, about voting and about other open issues of diaspora, reflected their interest and their potential to support local media in Albania. So without this things being, in a sense, resolved first, they were reluctant to provide support. And we got this message over and over again. A Greek diaspora taking the time to read the entire survey or the questionnaire for in-depth interviews and then getting back with this feedback about the open issues that diaspora have with the Albanian state. Secondly, they were the ones that also had concerns, as with the other diaspora, about links of media with politics. So even if this would work, then it has to start very in small scale and with particular media that have a reputation, for instance, of being independent and offer quality content, such as, for example, investigative media that have established a well profile in Albania, or local media that cover a specific topic, for example, health or tourism or history, archaeology, cultural heritage in general. And so if this, in a sense, conditions are fulfilled, Greek diaspora would be interested in principle, if the right opportunities present themselves, to support media. However, at the same time, they are very well organized. So there are very good entry points for local media to start this communication interaction, let's say, with the Greek diaspora and build trust, because building trust in our understanding is not simply about content. Of course, it's about content and quality, but with local media and personal connections is also about these interactions and doing things together, so collaboratively, and trying to do things together can also help in terms of strengthening the trust between diaspora and local media.
Finally, who did the analysis? Just another question from the chat.
So there was a team of researchers that was brought together by the Center Science and Innovation for Development. It was done for Thompson Foundation as a pilot study, and with the potential to be scaled up and to see how can diaspora be engaged with local media across the Western Balkans, and hopefully to also receive some funding from interested donors to support particular local media in Albania and in the Western Balkans to develop diaspora engagement strategies and also improve their digital presence with the aim of better engaging with audiences for monetization, but particularly for quality content and diversification.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Valeriana. I would just point out a very important point in our conversation, that all medias in Albania and contacting the diaspora in no matter which country it's not about changing content. It's about local news. It's about local politics. It's still not about creating news that is related to Italy or France or whatever it is. It's still about local. It's just about building trust with the target audience and seeing or getting them to see the value in it. So thank you for your points, Valeriana. We're moving on, and as we just talked about, it is a recognized fact that a lot of audience, especially in the Western Balkans, has issues with trust when it comes to media. And one of the results can be a lack of interaction and even recognition of that media brand. So there is a constant strive to gain the respect and keep the attention of the audience, because attention is a very valuable thing. So Vidi Vaka Goran was founded in a time that most media, most people would describe as unhospitable for starting a new media business. What was your initial goal and strategy when you founded it?
Thank you. I would also like to thank you, Željko, and my colleagues in today's webinar for the opportunity to share our story. And then I'm going to ask you, do you want the short or the long version of the story?
Well, you can start off with the short, and then we'll see if we can widen it, because we have more questions for you, not just about.
Okay. Well, first of all, it was very simple, and you know that simple is most complicated. As you mentioned before the start of our webinar, we should try and be short, and for that we need to prepare for 2 months. So this is actually what we decided to do with Vidi Vaka, to do the most simple but the most complicated product that there is at the moment. And also it was a product that was starting to go in the global hype. But as you said, things happened in a very unhospitable time. Actually, how we started the story was, it covers a lot of the aspects that were mentioned today previously. When we were discussing and brainstorming the idea, we were actually in the position of audience. So what we analyzed at that moment was that the audience and media have alienated themselves. They don't communicate. We have professional media, especially professional mainstream media, that are highly polarized and take sides, political sides, openly take political sides, and they have their own pool of audience who is used. It's like, pushing buttons. When you need to have a survey with people who to show that moment of engagement, you're using people that are usually in the echo chamber of the side that you're representing. So that actually led us in the position to, first of all, people stopped calling the phones of media. It was not only the reason that fixed phone lines stopped existing, that the connection was canceled, but it was also because they didn't find reply and reverse engagement from the media, who actually forgot about their own role, and that is to be the bridge between the citizens and the decision makers, a watchdog of a kind, and the seventh force that will help have a better society. that actually meant that in this highly polarized situation, an ecosystem with a lot of echo chambers, for you to get to know the real news, you will need to read 5 to 6 different outlets, and then even then maybe you will not be able to understand what the real story is. So, and I don't need to mention the level of media literacy in the country, or the level of the functional literacy actually in the country. It is very low. So what we actually wanted to do is to change that, to bring back debate and to bring back hope to the people and to the citizens that there is a media they can rely on and there is a media they can trust. We didn't want to rush into the race of daily news. We considered that people already get the news to them, that we are the place to go to where you can get the whole story. And we knew, as Sonia said, that this is going to be a long run. We had this long run, a 6 months pilot project that this month, in 2 days, will celebrate 5 years, actually. And to cut this part that I will continue later, we have started from scratch, and we have came to the position that one of our stories has 1.2 million organic reach on Facebook, in a country such as Macedonia that probably has 1.2 million people on Facebook. Well, the last census that we had shows the results are not official, but shows that we have around 1.8 million people in the country. Our monthly reach doesn't go lower than 400, 500,000 people. So basically, how we managed to be the first media in Macedonia and probably in the region that started breaking the echo chambers was that we took some topics that are of value for the audience, at least that we considered are the value from the audience, and we started to making them part of our daily agenda. We started to give voice to voiceless, something that the mainstream media didn't do. The only thing you could see on the mainstream media was press conferences from the 2 political parties in the country. What did one of them said, and then the answer of what the other one said. This is also very bad for journalism and journalists themselves as a profession. But we also, when we decided how to make Vidi Vaca, we had also a few simple things in mind, and one was Pablo Picasso, who is saying that good artists copy and great artists steal. We actually stole the idea from Now This News, which is the outlet that started this social media video format before, and we saw it there. But what we did, we listened to Picasso until the end of what he wanted to say, and that is that we took the parts that are adaptable for the Macedonian ecosystem and market. And actually, when we were trying to pitch the idea, it was easy and complicated at the same time, because we were saying to people, do you see Now This News? Yes, we want this, but not this. This for the Macedonian market. And actually, in a few years, we were a very big enigma to the journalists, but what was important for us and for the media ecosystem, but what was important for us was that we were not enigma for the audience. We had made a research before the start that our targeted audience at that point from 16 to 30, that they are getting information mostly from internet portals. Second were social media. Third was TV, and radio and newspapers were not even mentioned. So knowing that the media sphere is full of internet portals, we saw this opportunity with what Now This is using, and we wanted to not to try something the Balkan style, trying to invent hot water. We wanted to start to see if this model will function. And fortunate for us, this model functioned because we always had the idea that we are going to do this on a long run, and that if we are going to get recognition from the audience, it's going to be on the long run, and it's going to be a faithful audience that will not be generated through some paid ads. Faithful audience that in the end will share the values that we returned on the market. We managed to bring back debate, to have people from all the sides of the political spectrum, which we are very proud of, very much proud of, because we have we know our audience, because we follow every move with the same excitement as we did the first day. There are people who are pro some of the values that we have and against some of the other values, but they're still there and supporting what we do. So I'm going to try to stop here so I can let you.
Okay. So congratulations on having such an engaging media outlet and so much success. But the most important thing is right now. So how did you manage that? So what is, and you did this utilizing a wide variety of different content types, that most media choose one or two content types and basically choose one primary and then just utilize the others. So you're utilizing a lot of different types of content to drive engagement. So can you go through some of the content, and how did this affect your engagement with the audience?
I'm gonna read first a short list of what we do. We started with 1-minute videos that were tailored for social media. Then we extended this to a longer format, up to 2 or 5 minutes. Then we started doing mid-form videos up to 10 minutes. Then documentaries up to 20 minutes, docuseries up to 7 minutes. We started experimenting with gamified interactive videos. We did whiteboard animation, animated explainer videos, graphic news, which is one very interesting but expensive format. We even tried a podcast. What is very crucial for us as a media, and I believe, and we try to share this with our colleagues, from the region, also from other media, is that we were always hungry to compete, and we were in a situation that we had no competition. So we had to make up a competition, and then we were our own competition. When we had a schedule, milestone schedule of what we want to produce in the first 6 months, very soon after there was engagement from the audience, we became hungry and we started to produce content that is longer. And then later on, if you remember, there was this very big crisis with social media platforms when Facebook changed the algorithm, and all of a sudden, from favorizing short video formats, it started favorizing long video formats. But just because of that, and just because of we tried to race with ourselves, we were ready. We already had the 10-minute and the 20-minute formats when Facebook started doing that. So, and at that point, you will remember that a lot of big outlets closed their businesses, and we have only grew. And we cannot, at some points, we cannot follow up the growth that the brand and then the storytelling way has. What was also important that we wanted to do is to give space to non-governmental organizations who are also helping us now in the process of piloting all of these formats. Some of these formats are expensive. Some of them, all the video up to this 5 minutes video and 10, 20 minute video, you need the same mechanisms to produce them. But to experiment with some other formats, sometimes we needed financial help. And we were also a donor-based organization that started to sell the way of the storytelling that we have. So we were lucky that in few situations we had clients coming to us and saying to us, you guys are innovative. We see that in a few months you're releasing another format. We want to give you the trust and to experiment together with you. So for an example, we did something that we would never do. It's a whiteboard animation that we did for a client, and we saw that it is applicable, but only for commercial users. What is important here, and for the audience engagement, to also say is that we offered the audience something that is very simple, but again, it was very rare in the time when we started, and it's probably very rare today also. And that is content that is fair and that is honest. And this is probably the cherry on the top, that after we stick to a lot of topics and to a lot of different trying to tell them throughout other different media formats, we were actually building different streams of communities that are supporting what we are doing and giving us the overall strength that we all need, and there's the audience engagement. What we had recently was a lesbian couple. The LGBTI is a topic that we are representing for years, since the beginning. This is one of the topics that are very important to us, along with other voiceless groups in the societies as well as in our society. But building this throughout the years, we had a situation that I didn't experience actually as a journalist, even in the best times of journalism, or maybe the last year of best times of journalism with the audience engagement. That was that this couple contacted us through inbox. They don't know anyone, they do not have connections, through inbox, asking from us to tell their story. And this is crucial, because they knew what the comments would be. They knew everything. It's clear. We cannot change we cannot break the echo chambers overnight and change everything overnight. Everything has to happen on a long run, unfortunately. But what they also knew is that we are the media to be trusted, that we are the media that will not make a sensationalism of that story, that will not objectivize them, that will not portray them, that will not humiliate them, but it will tell the story as it is. So all these formats that I just mentioned with bullets are support of what was the major fail of journalism from the beginning. And I should have said this in when you asked the first question, and that was that we believe, journalists, traditional mainstream media believe, that the audience is the one that needs to adapt to our forms and to our formats, and that is not the case. We are all punished for having that arrogant approach, and for not adopting to all the media trends, and for not adopting to the form and to the ways that audience wants to consume the news. And also, what was very important for us, and that's something that Sonia said, the bad news are always highly valued in a way that people want to read them, and of course they cause fear. But it's very hard to sell good and positive stories, and that's actually what we managed. Having been ourselves in the position of audience that has issues of finding reliable content at one place, we also felt that we are over bombarded with negative news and with only bad news, and that we stopped seeing the good stuff around us, and that we stopped seeing that there are heroes and positive stories around us, no matter how complicated the political and the society situation in our countries are. So this is something we are very proud, and this was actually achieved by what Sonia said, by not waiting and expecting for quick points overnight, but by keeping in touch with the audience. We are some of our people in the team are night birds. And we actually sometimes reply to comments at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. It's something that we felt that needs to be done, and that we try to continue to do it, even though it's getting harder. What also Sonia said, to maintain this, especially when you have growth and when you have more and more people getting involved.
Thank you for that. And my last question for you is, you mentioned all the formats that you're doing, so short videos, documentaries, and basically all the formats that you mentioned are in a way, video formats. They're different length. They're different, maybe format, depending on if you're targeting them on social or on website or on the place point that you're putting them on. You mentioned a podcast that was also video or audio only.
No, that was actually audio only.
And are there any other formats? So we can all agree video is one of the kind of most engaging types of content that there is, because the attention span of today's audience is hard to get. So is there any other type of non-video format that you tried there that you're doing?
Yes, there is, and this is actually I hope for the third question where I can finish with circling the story, and that's how we decide what we're gonna do. And this is also involved. There's also stealing involved in this, so be careful. This is actually one of the first principles of testing what we're going to do, that we're not afraid to steal. But when we steal it, we openly point out which is the example that we took and which is the source of inspiration. Because, of course, we want to give credit to some author's work that was done, but also we want to adopt it and to make a better content and better storytelling and some change maybe in our audience. So that would be the first step. The second step would be to analyze the potential of the adaptation to our market. And the third would be to identify the capacity that we have, because usually we try to steal from BBC, from New York Times, from big media that have endless resources in doing stuff. But there is one case of a very interesting format called graphic news that we saw at one very small Italian outlet. Actually, we have tried to do this. We have did few stories. One of them was even awarded. It went very well with the audience, but this format in the end is very expensive to produce and time consuming. And the reason why we are not having it like on a factory truck is this is actually the reason. We actually didn't even have at that point the capacities to give it the proper run with our audience and to see the engagement on the long run. What we also do, and that is different, it's not totally a video format, is the multimedia stories that can offer you a more depth and long read about a topic that we actually already covered, or for that multimedia story we covered with video, audio, etc. I don't need to explain the multimedia concept. The podcast was actually done because of a quick adaptation to the situation with COVID. We decided that we should try with all the weapons to target the audience so we can help in better engagement with what happened to us, and nobody could expect it. So this is why actually it was only an audio format. We are preparing to do some podcasts, especially because we are following not only world trends but the regional trends, and we know that in Serbia podcasts are going pretty well. That's not the case in Macedonia actually, but that's an advantage for us. So we have tried and we will try probably other different formats that are not only video, but video will still stay the core and what we are recognizable for. Actually, I would say storytelling, and that's the final simple thing that we added to this mix. That storytelling is a humankind constant. It's throughout time. Media have changed, ways have changed, but people are hungry for a good story and for a story told in a good way since the beginning of mankind. So this is kind of the holy grail of our existence.
Fantastic point. So one question from the audience: is Vidivalka a financial success? How much do you make a year? So you don't have to answer the second part of the question, just the first one.
Yeah, it's Vidivalka is a really, I know and I'm very happy because we have had interaction with Krieg and with Stevan, and we have exchanged a lot of good experiences throughout this year at few occasions that we had to meet. Vidi Vaca, we know about their success of 20%. We can say that Vidi Vaca last year made 40% of all the money in the foundation, actually. So in a way, it contributed with 40% to the sustainability of the organization. So yes, our way of storytelling and our audience are recognized, and we are also commercially doing work, and we are also hoping that we will get more and more higher numbers in this direction and have full sustainability, which is actually science fiction for the times and the region we live in.
Well, at least you're going in the right direction, and we're
we hope
rooting for you.
It like that.
Yeah. Okay. One last question for Blariana regarding the research. Can the research be applied to Serbia as well? So depending on the research that you did, can similarities be applied?
Thank you. Yes, thank you for the question. I think it also depends on the media ecosystem in Serbia and the type of diaspora. But and it would definitely need some specific research to identify the specific needs or media consumption habits or interests of Serbian diaspora. However, in principle, I think the suggestion that we provide about how to engage with media, with diaspora for local media are relevant as well for the overall Western Balkan context. But for more specifics, I think it needs to be backed up with data regarding the Serbian diaspora and the media ecosystem in Serbia.
Okay, fantastic. So we're waiting on the last questions from the audience. So I'm going to call the audience again. If you have any questions, I'm going to pose one last question to each one of our experts and my guests on the webinar. They do not know they will have this question. It wasn't prepared. So you have a few minutes just to put it. So I would ask each one of you, Sonia, you have been quiet for a while, so it's like just right for me to ask you one last question. So each one of you to ask, I believe in small steps. So what is the one small step that, in your opinion, is your advice that the media can do to increase audience engagement?
I think it's simple stuff. Asking your readers, your audiences, what they feel about the content you do in different ways, whether you want to, ask them on the streets and have a stand and, spend a few hours and just get feedback, or you want to introduce a newsletter and ask them that way, or you want to have a poll on your website, depends on where your audiences are. But start small, and based on that small information you get, make different approaches and strategy. But yeah, I think the key is to actually ask the people who you're creating the content for what they want to read. I think it's very basic stuff.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Blariana, same question.
Yes, in addition to that, I fully agree with Sonia. I think it's also important for media to reflect as a group in terms of what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve that. And second, to learn from the others. It is a very good option. And in most of the cases, other peers, other media, other organizations are willing to do this on a pro bono basis. Ask and learn from the others and see how you can improve what you are doing.
Okay, thank you. And you're the last one. Goran, go ahead.
Oh yeah, this is $1 million question, actually. Yeah, I would say I would add some drama to this.
Okay, small steps, Goran. Small steps. Remember,
it is a small step. It's the simplest.
Not complicated, but simple. You know.
I would say that media needs to listen. And when if get in a situation that I say this to some colleague, a representative, and he says there's nothing to listen, I can't hear anything, then you're not listening well. There is a way. Always there is a way. And you all mentioned some of the actions that can be taken, but it means that you have to be dedicated very much, and finding, if you're not listening, then it's your fault. You have to find a way to listen, to know your audience, as we said here today, and to try to adopt even if you're wrong. I mean, even if you turn up to be wrong, mistakes are a good thing. We are all being taught here in this region to try to learn from others people's mistakes. That's utopia. We need to learn from our own mistakes and not to be afraid to make mistakes. So yeah, listen. Try to listen, and that's
Okay,
it.
cool. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. Thank you for your time and your expertise. Thank you for the audience that has been very attentive over the 1 hour, 15 minutes that we were running this webinar. This webinar will be on Journalift platform when we finish in a couple of days. You can find it there and share it with anybody that you feel has an interest in this. There will also be other Journalift webinars over one also this month and one other in December, and we're going on for a couple of months. So keep an eye out and register for another webinar. Until then, thank you and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.